There's few situations that stick with you, that will sit picture perfect in your mind. You might not think about it every moment of every night, but sometimes something will set it off, and you can't help but relive the moment as if you went back to the past. The morning finally came where my spouse informed me I was going to take out all of the junk in our basement, or she's leaving me. So it didn't take long for me to get down there at all. I got down to the basement and went through the maze and puzzles of boxes and junk. I went to my stereo system down there and plugged in my aux cord from my phone to jam out, which helped to convince me to keep working. I looked up out the small window into the front to see my boy playing outside with our dog, Pup. I have a way with names. I started sorting on my first box, which was an accomplishment in itself, and it didn't take long for me to find this unpleasant. I can't deny that the thought of let's just toss everything didn't cross my mind. But I didn't want to upset my spouse. There was an argument on it last week, but my thoughts on it is most men can probably agree. Do you want to be right or happy? When I finally started getting somewhere, my music started acting up. I rushed to the stereo because just like everyone else, I love that shrieking feedback you get when your cord gets a little detached. The aux cord seemed to come unattached and didn't want to work. I put my phone back in my pocket and moved to the next box. The quiet got to me, and as quickly as it got quiet, it got unsettling. Right when I got comfortable, a big massive stack of boxes crumbled and hit the concrete floor. My heart dropped immediately, but I moseyed over to the grouping of boxes and all the spilled contents and started to pick them up. I moved one of the boxes, then lifted it to get the biggest jolt of the morning, the doll, which resulted in me dropping the box back on top of it. That face was terrifying. Must have cracked when it dropped out of the box onto the floor because there were now little cracks throughout its face, which didn't help its creepy appearance. I've been horrified by this doll since I was little. The cracks through its face really didn't help. I despised it. I swore it would move on its own. My Bubba and I got in trouble with our sitter over it one night. The experience still doesn't sit right with me. We got the damned thing when I was really little, not even a teen yet. Thinking back to that morning when we got a knock on our front door, my pa was taking a bit in his conversation, and I got nosy. I peeked to see this old wrinkly woman by the door with my paw grasping the doll like it was trying to take off. She noticed me and gave me the evilest smirk. I swore there was something off about this woman. They continued talking, then my paw lifted his shoulders and nodded. The woman pulled the doll close and mumbled nonsense to it. She then put the doll into this box of possessions she kept. Then my paw picked up the box. She hugged him and looked at me one last time over his shoulder. Prior to leaving, she almost crumbled into the door. I ran to the living room window to see she slowly and sickly stumbled back to the vehicle she came with and left. Every step seemed as though she was going to die in our walkway. My ma looked through the box and gave me a few of the knickknacks and miniatures to play with. I didn't have many playmates, so this was awesome. Bubba was mentally not all there, so it was tough to play with him. I didn't think much about it, but every time I went into the room, that dumb doll was looking at me. I talked to my parents about how it creeped me out. My pa basically informed me to buck up, but eventually he did move it. I don't know where, but I was happy it was out of sight. We lived in a no BS home. There wasn't time for paranormal, the unnatural, mysteries, or any strange stuff. Honestly, most stuff can be explained, I thought anyways. But about how me and Bubba got in trouble. One night our parents went out to karaoke night and they got a sitter, our routine sitter, Christina. It was a normal night when it started getting dark. There were a lot of noises throughout our home. No bombs going off, but subtle noises that we don't usually hear, like bumps or taps on the wall. So Christina thought I was trying to make stuff up. But when she caught on to the noises, they stopped, then picked back up. When she finally caught on, she looked worried for a moment. "Don't move," she mumbled. But I followed Christina anyways. We got to the last room in our home that we didn't check. It was our parents' room. The noises kept coming from in there. I was excited and terrified all at the same time. She looked at me, but this time I couldn't help but not move. She cracked the door to peek inside. She went to turn on the light and shouted. I jumped back into the wall and dropped down to my butt. I couldn't see what she shouted at, but I couldn't move. She went inside and my heart got faster with every beat. She walked out and threw the doll at me. "Is this some kind of sick joke to you?" as it hit down by my feet. "What are you talking about?" I shouted back, and the look she expressed at me. Ugh. Christina picked up the doll and just threw it back inside my parents' room, but it wasn't long till the noises came back and persisted. She got on to me and Bubba again, but we were just playing on the floor at that point. All we saw was Christina stomping back into my parents' room, then freaked out and rushed out of our home. We didn't see Christina again, or what she experienced. But our parents blamed us. We were so ticked. We felt like it was a setup. Got in trouble for going into the room, breaking stuff. None of us went in there except Christina. Looking back, there seemed to be a lot of strange happenings. I did assume she kinda did it to get us in trouble. That's what I assured myself anyways. She wasn't in every case the nicest person. So anyways, I moved the box to see it. Here I am, staring it in the face again. I'm just happy Bubba ain't here to see this dumb doll. I picked it up, looked at its foot to see Little Miss Perfect, I mumbled. Yeah, right. I thought, such a silly name for a doll. It's interesting how much I forgot about. But that's for a different time. I shoved it back in the box from whence it came. As I enveloped the box, I recalled my pa telling me as a teen when I stumbled upon the dumb doll again. Ma was gone at this point, so was Bubba. It was one of the last times me and Pa actually were able to talk. The old woman was a distant aunt of his. She learned of a terminal illness, so she started meeting with relatives and giving away all the possessions she owned. That's all I really recall about the woman. That was the first and last time my pa met his aunt. Bubba acted weird prior to his passing. He mentioned one time he was home by himself, and he got locked in his room. He kept hearing stuff from behind him, and he turned to see the doll was up sitting on his bed, not where it was prior. I thought he was just trying to spook me. I forgot all about this till I looked into this doll's eyes in the box. It seemed that the more I looked at this doll, the more moments came back. I was determined that my son wasn't going to continue passing on this family gem. I pulled it out of the box and sat it down by the stereo system. I continued going through our mess in the basement. I kept looking at the doll just to make sure it wasn't moving. I got into my head about it. The paranoia caused me to jump at little noises everywhere around me, from pup barking to my spouse stepping on a loose floorboard on the base level. I couldn't stop. I started rushing and moving quickly, eventually not having my back at it at all. I was waiting for this doll to jump out of every box I went to open up. I turned to see a silhouette rush right past me. I dropped into a pile of boxes to realize it was my son running past the small window. It was starting to get late and the sun was setting. I turned immediately to see the doll staring at me. It didn't move. I heard my name getting shouted and I squealed. I'm in a living hell, I thought to myself, but it was my spouse checking on me. "Everything cool?" she announced while looking throughout the basement. "It looks nice down here." She paused from peering. "You ain't keeping that, are you?" I noticed what she was staring at. "No, absolutely not," I replied. "Great, dinner's almost done. Don't take too long." "Yes, ma'am," I replied. I couldn't wait to get up there. I thought I'd done enough this evening. I was pacing up the steps, then took one last glimpse at the doll. Then I went on my way. We sat, ate, and eventually I forgot about it. We continued on having a normal night. The evening hit, and we all went to sleep. In the middle of the night, apparently my spouse was awoke, then me. She shushed me and gestured to keep quiet. I thought someone broke into our home. Noises started. I paused. "Babe, go check it out. Make sure Pup isn't getting into the trash cans," she stated. I stumbled down the dark hallway, mostly still asleep. The noises started again, with the bumps on the wall puzzling me because Pup was laying down but on alert. I don't trust my gut like I trust Pup's senses. The noises stopped, and the hush was killing me. Something hit my foot and I almost jumped out of my shorts. When I was done waking up from this living nightmare, I noticed it was a marble. I picked it up to notice it was one of the decorations on our shelves that my spouse loves. I looked over at Pup to notice he was looking past me. I turned to see the doll sitting on the shelf, staring off. I paused. Then the eyes batted and looked at me. I dropped to the floor, dry heaving almost. The dog rushed to the shelf, barking. It looked as though the damned thing looked at me. The lights turned on, with my spouse walking into the living room, and the doll was looking off again. "What the hell is going on?" she questioned, as she noticed I was across from the doll, and she started laughing. "You weren't supposed to see that till morning." I wasn't myself. Then she explained how she went down and got it prior to coming to bed. When she was done finding the humor in it, she paused. "Did you move it?" she questioned, as I shook. "I'm sure," she replied with an eye roll, and blew it off. She went back to bed, then I checked on the doll. The lights were off. Maybe I was really in my head about this, I thought. I didn't think I'd make it to sleep that night. The next morning, I checked to see the doll was still in the living room. It was. I got my coffee and got down to the basement as soon as I was able. I was going to get as far away from that dumb thing as I was able to. I saw that my little man and Pup were outside again. It was relaxing away from the stress, all the terrible moments I kept thinking of and spooking myself. Luckily, when I get caught up doing an activity, I can momentarily forget about any stress I might have. I finally wrapped up the basement. The last thing to do was take off all the junk. I packed up all the junk we were tossing and got ready to go. I almost forgot to get Little Miss Perfect. It was there, waiting. I was staring at it. Apparently I zoned out because I got jolted with, "Dad, can we keep it?" It was my little man with the pup looking up at it. "No," I replied, as he seemed a little disappointed. With me now snatching it, then making my way out to the truck, the time has come. I arrived to the dump. I'm finally going to toss it, but first, I thought I'd wait. I got done with throwing everything out, and it was time. I'm not gonna lie. I couldn't help but think it seemed a little ridiculous, but it brought comfort. I looked into its eyes one last time. I wish I could have said the doll blinked, but nothing. I threw it on top of everything else, then went back to my truck. I sighed, then felt at ease. I started up the truck, then went to check my rear view and noticed it was completely moved. I moved the mirror back to see the damn doll in the back of my truck. I couldn't move. I was absolutely shook to my core. Every strange occurrence I put up with, or passed off as something explainable, it was assuring that I wasn't nuts or making this up. Jumping out, I picked up the damn doll and threw it, keeping an eye on it as I backed up and got into my truck. I drove off as fast as I was able. I kept looking in the bed. I even pulled over on a back street on the way home to check it once more for reassurance. I even checked the back seats and below my seats. I haven't seen it since, and I didn't want to see it again. The trouble was, it explained a lot. I thought about it the whole trip home, and I won't forget. I just didn't want anyone else to encounter it. Also, there were a few times I thought I seen one of my son's knickknacks move or misplaced, but nothing as off-putting as that doll. There's too many circumstances we can't explain and probably won't. I leave it up to my imagination, my paranoia, or tricks of the mind. I'd pass these tales on to my son, but it'd probably create problems or become a terrible game of telephone. My woe now was this the beginning of something terrible?